Hey there, welcome to the channel. So today I want to talk about um, what to expect from your socialist utopia. So right now, I think that we are living in times where they have applied many of the tenets of what people would like for socialism in the US. And in particular, I'm thinking like, Bernie Sanders and then also like AOC. So what they're thinking about, what they call socialism and what they're looking at and what they kind of want is something to more of like an extended safety net like there is in Europe, but also many of them want things like UBI, universal basic income, and much more support for people that are struggling. And so, what is happening? We are in a very unique time, I think. We are in a time where we basically have tested many of these tenets of the socialism that people like Bernie and AOC would like to see in the US. So, why do I say that? Okay, so right now, this week in the market, today's Saturday, but during the week, there was a Fed meeting. And what the Fed came out and announced is that they are going to taper off their bond purchasing to zero, and then they're going to start raising interest rates next year. So currently, to understand now, the question, okay, first of all, why are they doing that? Now, they're doing that because we have had persistently high inflation over the last 6 months to a year. If you remember, for a very long time, the Fed has been saying that, hey, we have a target inflation rate of 2%. And they've struggled for years and years to get the inflation rate into that range. But now, suddenly in 2021, we are now seeing persistently high inflation. We're seeing inflation in the 5%, 6% range being reported regularly over the last 6 months. So now, for years, the Fed has kept the interest rates at zero, printed money through, not printed money, but through bond buying. They've supported things. They've done 120 billion a month in bond buying, 80 billion of it treasuries, 40 billion of it mortgage-backed securities. They've been doing this for years. You look at an interest rate chart, they've kept interest rates at zero for 10 years after the great financial crisis, in 08, 09. And they haven't been able to get the inflation. So now all of a sudden they're getting the inflation. Now, the question is why? So because of the cerveza sickness, which is what I'll call the, sickness that's we've been dealing with for the last 2 years, because I don't want to get suspended. Because of that, what happened, you saw that they shut down the economy, and they also did a lot of things like there was a lot of unemployment. So they gave out extra unemployment benefits. They also gave out stimulus checks to people. And there was a lot of other government supports. And in effect, what happened is that they printed a lot of money in 2001 as compared to 2000. Like if you look at an M2 money supply chart, you see that they increased the M2 money supply by 25% in 1 year. So think about it. If there was $1 billion out there circulating in 2020, in 2021, there was $1 billion plus 25%. I mean, what you did in effect is devalue the currency by 25% in 1 year, right? It's an amazing thing to think about. But this is what was done. So now the problem is that all this money printing, all this stimulus, and all this money that was given directly to people has caused high inflation. Now, of course, they're not admitting to that. They will talk about other things, supply chain shocks and things like that. But of course, if it was just supply chain shocks and things like that, then they wouldn't be going in talking about stopping their bond purchases and raising rates. So in a way, they don't want to tell you what they're really thinking. They want to tell you something else. So that's where we're at. So what does this look like? What's really going on is that if we have this push towards socialism in the US. We have this push, and it's getting more and more airplay, let's say, um, to especially from Bernie's been for many years, and they have the newer people like AOC pushing this, and generally like people in the Democratic Party pushing socialism. And what they want is they're basically trying to buy votes. And but they're also many of them like Bernie. I mean, he's not disingenuous. My impression is I don't think he's very disingenuous. I think he really does care, and he's like, hey, look, there's all these billionaires and billionaires getting richer and richer, and we just need to tax them more, spend money, create programs that'll help the poor. But that's exactly what we did in 2020 and 2021. Think about it. We directly had people that were unemployed. And so what did we do? They had unemployment benefits, but we also increased them. They had the extra $300. And then we also gave stimulus payments. We directly just gave money directly to people. I mean, this was for the US, I believe, a test run of universal basic income. And the concept of that is that what you do is you just, other countries have tried this as well. What you do is you say, hey, instead of having all these programs, food stamps, welfare, et cetera, for people that are poor, what we do is we just say, hey, we're going to give them this basic income. We give them like $1,400, $2,000 a month, and then they go spend it. They go do what they want with it. And what happens is that's kind of the idea. So you're giving money directly to people. Well, that's exactly what we did. In 2021, 2020, because of their cerveza sickness, that's exactly what the government did. So now that we have this experiment, so now let's try to look at what's happening. What was the result of that? Okay. Not saying it's good or bad, but let's look at what the result is. Okay. So in 2021, they gave people all this money, and it was different this time. Many of the universal basic income proponents say, look, in the great financial crisis in 08 and 09, this is when we had, Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers go bankrupt and the stock market crash and all these jobs were lost in the business sector. They're like, hey, look, you had the TARP, this program that, helped bail out all these big banks. You did all that. And look, there was no inflation. And they're right. There was really, in terms of measured by the CPI, there was no inflation. So they printed billions and billions and billions of dollars, and there was no inflation. And they bailed out the banks. The worst one, I think, being, the bailout for AIG, which really was a direct bailout for Goldman Sachs, which is pathetic. However, that's their argument. But see, it's different this time. What happened in 2021 is that the money was given directly to people. See, when you give money to the banks, what did they do? Like Goldman Sachs got the $13 billion that came from AIG to plug a hole. What did that do? That plugged a hole in their balance sheet. That may have ended up going into stock market, bond market, but it didn't go directly into the economy. It didn't go into buying food. It didn't go into buying TVs. It didn't do any of that, right? So it didn't really add to inflation. It didn't add to buying power for food, for gas, anything like that. So it didn't put buying pressure on inflation. That's the difference. The difference now is that in 2020, 2021, we've given money directly to people. And we've given it to everyone. And so what are people doing? They spent that money. Their incomes went up and they spent that money. And what did they spend it on? Everything. TVs, whatever. But they also spent it on things like food. They got to buy food. You got to buy food, water, blah, 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 gas for your car, et cetera, et cetera. All this stuff. Okay. So now that's why this is different than the GFC. And that's why this is really a test of UBI and socialism in America, right? Because you're doing exactly what the AOCs of the world want us to do. They want us to give money directly to people, to support people directly by giving them money through UBI or programs or whatever. Okay, so what was the result of that? The result of that is now we have high inflation that's been persistent. And the Fed has finally admitted, and that's what the big news was this week, the Fed admitted that, hey, inflation is no longer transitory. It's sticking around. We have inflation instead of 2%, 5%, 6%, 7%. different subcategories are huge inflation in there. And that's what happens. So why is the inflation happening? Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, a big factor of this inflation is simply the fact that you increase the money supply by 25%. You gave money directly to people that are going to spend the money into the economy. You have all that increased buying, that pressure of buying things going into an economy that's not producing anymore or producing very little. And at the same time, in addition, there is the supply chain issue. There is the issue where, well, you shut down various businesses, whatever, and this shutdown also reduced the supply of goods. So if the supply of goods goes down and the demand for goods goes up, the price has to go up. But one of the key factors is, well, the price can only go up within a framework of how much money is available to do that. So this has been the big test. In conclusion, this was a test of UBI. Okay, we gave money directly to people. The result is what we're living with now. And the Fed, it's actually very surprising that the Fed has actually had to admit and be like, look, we're going to stop all our bond buying and we're going to crank interest rates because the inflation isn't going away. And trust me, they would not want to do that because there's a big risk to the markets, the stock market, the bond market. This could be very disruptive because you're looking at a situation where they've kept rates at zero for 10 plus years. And now you're going to raise them and you expect something not to break. It's really bad. Why do I say this is what to expect from your socialist utopia? Why do I say that? Obviously, I have my biases. I'm not a raging socialist. And I'm going to acknowledge that, hey, I really believe that a lot of these people, especially Bernie, is genuine, as I said before, and they really want to help people. And I want to help people too. But what happened is the model for 2021, what we did is we just gave people a bunch of money. Did we do anything to empower people to be able to support themselves better? No, we didn't. Another example is go back to the housing bust, the great financial crisis. All these people, they just lowered the loan standards, lowered, ninja loans, all that stuff. But did that help people? No, because owning a house doesn't make you rich. It doesn't make you wealthy. It doesn't. That's not what it does at all. What would have been better is to spend that money on training, education, okay, go get some training so you can get a better job. And then it's sustainable, right? And that's not what we did in the financial crisis. And that's not what we did in 2021. And the result is that you have people that, yes, they have money and they're spending money. However, there's still a lot of people not working. There's still a lot of people that are, not contributing. And the result is there's high prices because you have less goods and more dollars chasing those goods. But this hurts the poor people the most. This is inflation. It's called the inflation tax. It hurts them the most. Why? Because look, if you're already a person that's struggling and you're sitting there and you're spending 50%, 60% of the money that you are making, and you're spending it on housing, and the price of housing goes up 10% in a year, you're very well going to be homeless. And maybe that's why we see so many homeless people, right? If you're a person that's spending doesn't have enough money to buy food, and the price of that food is going up every week, then you're the one struggling. The rich people aren't struggling. It doesn't matter if their grocery budget goes from $1,000 a week to $2,000 to $3,000 a week. It doesn't hurt them at all, but it hurts a person on the edge a lot. People that, maybe are doing a little better and they have to put gas in their car to go to work and do things. Okay, gasoline going from $3 or $4 to $5 to $6, it hurts them a lot. It hurts them more. So the nature of what we're dealing with is something that's counterintuitive. The nature of what we are dealing with is that the politicians try to propose these socialist things such as UBI, stimulus payments to help the poor. But in the end, and this is what 2021 shows, is it actually ends up hurting the poor the most. That's what's happening. And it's very interesting because I'm an engineer kind of guy and look at the data. They're going to try to spin it any way they can spin it. But that's what we have. Objectively looking at the data, you give people a bunch of money that need the money, that are going to spend the money. They spend the money, but that drives the prices of the things they need to buy up to the point where they can't get ahead. You take a person that was making $10 minimum wage, and now they're making 15. In the big economy sense of things, it's a huge inflationary push because wages went from $10 to $15, which is a 50% increase in wages for that position, right? That's a huge inflationary pressure. But now you have all these people that are making 15 and they're running right now. Amazon is running these ads where they announce it at this warehouse and people are clapping. And you know what? That's wonderful that you get to 15, but the $15 isn't going to buy you what $10 did 2 years ago. The $15 is now going to buy you. You're going to be lucky if it would buy you what $5 did 10 years ago. So you're behind the curve. That's what no one will tell you. So in essence, it's like there are some people I believe that are genuine, but they don't understand the economics. They don't understand that, look, if I just give people a bunch of money and print a bunch of money, that I'm going to cause prices to go up, and the money that I give to them is devalued to the point that they're not getting ahead. They're not getting ahead at all. In the short term, in the very short term, maybe they get ahead, for maybe a half year. It's like, okay, look, I was able to pay my rent, but the prices that are going up are like, it's not sustainable. So that's what's going on in my mind. This has been a big test of the socialist agenda in the US. And it's an utter failure to me, because if you look at it, it's like the people that you're trying to help are struggling more than ever. They're struggling more than ever because the price of the things they need to survive is going up. And now, of course, this could go in multiple directions. We could keep going in this direction where it's like, okay, in 2022, 23, 24, they keep printing more money, handing more money out to people, causing prices to go up. Well, where's that money going to go? You know what it's going to do. I mean, it's going to take the rich. A big chunk of that money ends up in some market somewhere, some asset price where they make more money. That's how it is. I'm happy that the stock market has gone up all this amount, but at the end of the day, I don't want to do that on the back of people that can't eat, that their children are starving. The thing is that it's very hard for kind of the socialist agenda people to admit this, is like, look, you got to bring people up. That's the only way, because what's happening is this entire war on poverty that's been going on for generations has not achieved the goal. If it's achieved the goal, then, why are there still so many people on food stamps, et cetera, et cetera? Obviously, if you look objectively at the data, it hasn't worked. So you have to find a way to bring people up. If you should spend money and should help people, and kids, yeah, just provide them meals at school. That's fine. But we also want to help people to get better educated. And I'm not talking about going to college, whatever. At this point, colleges are they're kind of a mess. There's many, many things that people spend too much money on that don't give them a job where they can survive, make a living, right? And so that's not helpful. But there's many, we need lots of people. Like, think about it. Let's have another model. Let's say you had Meet Kevin's whatever schools that he was proposing. Okay, so now people actually get real skills that they can use to get a real job. Okay, you're not giving them free money. So when they go and they're earning $20 an hour, doing welding, car repair, all these other things, they're making $20 an hour. Is that person making $20 an hour contributing to the economy? Is that person causing inflation? No, not as much, because they're contributing to the economy. So the economy, it can afford, the company can afford and is happy to pay them that money because they're contributing. And you're not causing this high inflation rate because you have all these people that are contributing. And not only that, from the social aspect, it's good for them. They feel better like they're contributing instead of sitting around playing video games all day. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I've rambled on long enough, but I think the thing to consider is, if you're one of these people that wants to have more and more programs, try to take a look at what's really happening now. Are the people that you're trying to help, are they better off? Do you really think they're better off? That's it for this one. Talk to you later. Bye.